Grog is a genius. He has found that by adding tin to copper, he can make a metal that is stronger than either. Through experimentation, he's figured out that the appropriate copper to tin ratio is 9-1. Grog teaches his apprentices this ratio in the form of a poem to help them remember it. 1 part tin, 9 parts copper, make shield stronger and spear sharper. Sadly, Grog is better with metal than with words. One day, Grog dies. His apprentices are not geniuses. They don't know why Grog's recipe works. They simply obey the formula they were given, at least as they remember it. Already they cannot agree if it was 1 part tin and 9 parts copper, or 9 parts tin and 1 part copper. Within 2 generations, the recipe is lost. There is no one alive who remembers how to make bronze, and Grog's culture must wait for another genius to reinvent bronze, and hope that he comes up with a better poem. That is, essentially, the story of human civilization up until about 3,000 years BC. Who knows how many times we discovered fire, or invented the wheel, or identified a toxic plant, only to lose the advances we'd made. Then, somewhere in the fertile valley between the Tigris and Euphrates, a clever person came up with the idea of representing words with pictures. To record these symbols, they took a stick and drew pictures on wet clay. Once the clay had dried and hardened, their symbols were preserved so long as the clay was kept dry. These symbols, called pictographs, were the first written language, called cuneiform, named after the cone-shaped stick or stylus that they used to poke the clay. It is no coincidence that the first traces of writing share a location with the first traces of cities. Cities are impossible to administrate without some sort of writing. It is impossible to organize the activity of thousands of people simply by word of mouth. Cities generate huge amounts of records, inventories, taxes, censuses, decrees, and laws. Thus, of all the inventions of humanity, the most important to our development was the invention of writing. Writing makes all our other inventions possible. How? Well, let's look at what writing does. The main thing that writing does is that it allows people to communicate ideas across space and time. You can learn something from someone you've never met, whether they're far away or long dead. This has 2 major advantages. First, it increases social memory, allowing a society to retain the progress it's made. Instead of having to reinvent bronze when the guy who knows how to make it dies without an apprentice, that information is now written down and can be referred to by generation after generation of metallurgists. The second advantage of writing is that it reduces the corruption of ideas by oral transmission. Oral cultures must depend on what are called mnemonic devices to convey important ideas. This can be poetry, parables, or any such thing. We still use this sort of thing to convey conventional wisdom today. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, or beer before liquor, never been sicker. Yet these things can fall apart easily. Think about a game of telephone. By the time a message has passed from one person to another, it's already changed. The more people in the chain, the more messed up the message becomes. This isn't a problem when you're just playing a game, but imagine if you're trying to convey something very important, like, this plant, though delicious, is poisonous. The slightest error in the chain of communication could mean disaster. So, as we can see, with writing you can accomplish a great deal. You can retain what you've learned, and you can build upon the discoveries of others. Moreover, with writing you can organize human activity on a much grander scale than you can by word of mouth. We can see how these advantages played out in our history. As we shall see, civilizations that had writing were able to subjugate those who did not. Moreover, even when overthrown themselves, civilizations with writing lived on to influence their successors through their culture, technology, and accumulated wisdom.